YouTube, how you doing? Duckphones here, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're explaining every hero in Deadlock so you can finally stop getting rolled by characters you don't understand. Because, let's be honest, half the time you die in this game, you're just like, what even killed me? And yeah, today we're gonna be fixing that. Now, to make it rather quick, we're going to be talking about each and every single character for about 60 seconds or less so that you get a rough understanding that you can take into your game. Now, one last thing, if you like this content in any way, shape, or form, or it even helps you, do me a favor, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like Deadlock content, if you like Marvel Rivals, definitely come check it out. But that's enough about that, let's dive straight in. In Deadlock, characters are split into a couple different categories. For example, you have things like brawlers, which are your Abrams, for example. You have your more late game carries. These are characters like Haze, your Mouse 1 characters, for instance. Then you have your supports, you have your hybrids, and you have all these other characters and categories. I want to dive into that and first talk about our brawler category, starting off with Abrams. Now, Abrams is technically the face of Deadlock. People think of him as a melee-only character, but that's not really how he's played anymore. Yes, he can guarantee heavy melees with his shoulder charge upgrades, but he's evolved beyond just spamming punches. Now, he has strong sustain through both his Infernal resilience and Siphon Length, meaning the more damage he takes and the more enemies around him, the more he heals. And when things get sketchy, his Seismic Impact ultimate lets him reposition or chase, even making him unstoppable at max rank. Now, Billy is all about weaving melees into everything he does. His punches are faster than most, and they refill ammo, so you're constantly mixing shooting and meleeing. Now, while using one of his abilities Blasted, your damage ramps up and each hit boosts your max health. You want to bait out parries, punishes, and snowball fights. His kit is all about closing space with Rising Ram, juggling enemies, and locking them down with Chain Gang if they try to escape. Moving on, we come to Mo and Krill, otherwise known as Muhammad and Kareem, and they are the absolute nightmares for carries. Mo and Krill are designed to hunt down people with a teammate and delete them. They excelled at catching isolated players, locking them down with long crowd control chains, and finishing them off. Now, between Burrow for tankiness and engage, Sandblast for disarming, and Scorn for AoE healing, they are extremely oppressive if they get momentum. Now, moving on, we come to Shiv. Now, Shiv is a high mobility bruiser that thrives in extended fights. His rage mechanic powers everything. Once it stacks, he becomes significantly stronger. Now his knives apply bleed, his slice and dice gives him mobility, and bloodletting delays incoming damage so he doesn't get bursted instantly. Then once his enemies drop below a certain threshold, Killing Blow executes and can reset, letting him chain kills if played correctly. If you're coming from a game like Marvel Rivals, you can kind of think of it like Winter Soldier, for example, with his ultimate, if you want to make that comparison. Now, what's interesting about Silver is that she actually starts out as a brawler, then transforms into a full-on frontliner monster once she builds enough momentum. Her kit really revolves around sticking to targets, locking down movement, and dealing percentage health damage. Now, once she hits wolf form, she gains massive stats, mobility, and sustained damage, turning her into a serious threat in longer fights. Moving on, we come to Yamato. Now, Yamato is a lane bully and dive threat rolled into one. She pressures backlines with quick engages using Flying Strike, she slows enemies with her Crimson Slash, and bursts them with Power Slash. Now, what makes this character so unique is her ability to stay in fights longer than most burst characters thanks to cooldown resets and sustain. Her ultimate refreshes everything and gives her survivability, making her extremely dangerous if she times it well. It's your classic get out of jail card with this character. Now, our last but certainly not least brawler on the list is none other than Victor. Now, he is your classic juggernaut. Slow, tanky, and terrifying close. Now, he doesn't have really mobility or crowd control effects, but he makes up with his insane sustain. Between passive regen scaling, pain battery healing, and jumpstart utility, and even a self-revive ultimate, he's very hard to take down if he gets into range. There are a lot of items in this game that counter him, so he's not as of a problem, but honestly, he's just in your face constantly 24/7. That's what you're trying to look for. But anyways, that was a quick glimpse at all of the brawlers in quotations in Deadlock. If you're picking up Deadlock for the very first time, definitely check out the brawlers section. They're a pretty cool bunch of characters, and let me know what your favorite brawler is in the comments down below. Moving on, we come to our Spirit Nukers. These are heroes that are more fragile, but specialize in burst damage and hit and run playstyles. The first one on the list is my personal favorite, Apollo, and he's all about precise execution and timing.
His kit revolves around chaining movement abilities and punishing mistakes. His ultimate is a long-range dash that hits multiple enemies and scaled harder against low HP targets. Now, combined with his riposte ability and mobility, he's extremely rewarding but requires good timing and good execution. Moving on, we come to Calico, and Calico is a roaming assassin who can traverse the map using tunnels, and she excels at finding isolated targets and bursting her down quickly. Now, her combo relies around her gloom bombs and leaping slash, and her ultimate gives her invulnerability and resets, letting her safely dive and of course escape. Now, Celeste, in my opinion, is kind of a mix of a spirit nuker, a brawler, and a pseudo frontliner, and she plays more like a battle mage than anything else. She has a ton of high mobility, ricocheting projectiles, and sustained damage through her Light Eater ability. She thrives in chaotic teamfights where she can stay mobile and constantly output damage while avoiding threats. Her ultimate is a ball that bounces between targets that can rack up a serious amount of damage. Moving on, we come to Great Talon, which is your basically long-range harassment turned lethal. He chips away at enemies with his charged shot, which is a charged projectile. He controls space with his traps that eventually curses players that can't move or anything, and he can execute targets globally with his Owl ultimate. If you're out of position, he will punish you extremely hard. This character is rather fun, especially for, I would say, beginners in some aspect, but definitely something worth picking up. Then we move on to Lash. Now, Lash is sort of a spirit nuke and a pick hero at the same time. He's basically a roaming playmaker who thrives on map movement. He uses high ground, mobility, and his slam to deal burst damage before disengaging. He's not a traditional frontline, he's more about hit and run pressure and creating chaos in fights with his Death Slam ultimate. If you like movement, high burst damage, and just throwing people around, this is definitely an option for yourself. Then, last but certainly not least, we have Pocket. Now, Pocket is one of the trickiest heroes in the game in my opinion. Their abilities double as both offensive and escape tools, meaning decision making is honestly everything about this character. They deal strong burst damage, but rely heavily on positioning and timing to survive. His ultimate is Affliction that applies a massive debuff in a certain amount of area that can affect all of the enemies that puts them on reduced healing and healing over time. Then you have your category of pick heroes. These characters specialize in catching enemies and setting up eliminations or kills. The first one is Bebop, and honestly, nobody really likes playing against Bebop. He hooks you from across the map, sticks a bomb on you, knocks you up into the air, and deletes you. And if that wasn't enough, his ultimate is a massive laser that zones entire areas. A rather straightforward character, and if you were to compare it to other characters in other video games, for Overwatch you could think of Roadhog in a similar way with a hook, and at Marvel Rivals you could think of Winter Soldier with his hook as well. Pretty similar. Moving on, you have Haze, which plays like a stealth assassin. She builds up damage on targets, isolates them, and deletes them using invisibility and crowd control. Her ultimate essentially turns her into a walking aimbot, extremely deadly if you're caught alone. Moving on, we have Holiday, and Holiday is all about mobility and creative engages. You have bounce pads, aerial movement, and displacement tools that let her control fights in unique ways. She excels at picking up targets and setting up plays for her team, especially with her lasso ultimate that hooks one of the enemies, keeps them close to her, then she can bounce pad at them with her to the rest of the enemy team. She's kind of like your engage tool in a lot of different circumstances, kind of like a Mo and Krill. You're looking for that one annoying carry on the enemy team, and that's really about it. Then we have Paradox, who thrives on positioning manipulation. Her entire identity revolves around swapping positions with enemies, forcing bad engagements, and controlling space with her abilities. If used well, she can completely flip fights. She both has a time pulse grenade that gets bigger as time progresses, she has a wall, she has a kinetic carbine that can stun, and of course she has her swamp. Now again, last but certainly not least, you have Vindicta, who is a long-range execution specialist. She weakens enemies, keeps them in place, and finishes them off with high damage snipes. Her ability to stay airborne makes her hard to deal with if not pressured. Basically, she's only looking for those low HP eliminations to secure those picks so that you're guaranteed a man advantage. Moving on to our next category, we have our supports or utility-based hero. These heroes bring healing, buffs, control, and all sorts of other supportive aspects. Doorman, for an example, is kind of a hybrid who can be both a support and kind of a spirit nuker. More often than not, you play him as a support, but basically he can reposition teammates, isolate enemies, and set up coordinated picks. His utility makes him incredible, valuable in organized play. Again, Doorman, more or less, you're setting up opportunities and plays rather than doing a ton of damage, although with the recent changes, does a lot of damage though, but generally seen as a support. Moving on, we have Dynamo, who's an absolute team fight monster. In reality, his entire kit, he heals, he can reposition teammates, he has a rather large displacement ability with his first ability, which is the kinetic wave or dash, whatever you want to describe it as. Then his ultimate black hole can completely swing fights if it hits multiple targets. So this character is basically just all surrounding his ultimate. Now moving on to Ivy, so she combines support with strong map presence. She clears waves rather quickly, she rotates fast, she can stun enemies, she can heal teammates and allies, and she can also reposition allies mid-fight. Her linking ability, again, provides constant team-wide buffs, those buffs just being sustained healing through a lot of different aspects. Overall, a super solid support now. Then you have Kelvin, who controls space with slows and utility. He supports his team through Healing Zone, his Ice Grenade, his movement tools, which is his Ice Path, and his constant debuffs, which is his Ice Beam, which are incredibly annoying to deal with if you're on the enemy team. Then he has a dome that allows you to self-cast or cast on a teammate, a giant dome that provides healing, and in the later stages, purges some non-ultimate abilities like Infernus Burn or any slowing hex, disarming hex. You get the idea. Very good healer if you're looking to pick up some sort of healer. Then you have Mcginnis, who's kind of a spirit nuker slash support hybrid on a sort of situation as Doorman, who received some changes, so she's a lot stronger now. But at the end of the day, originally she was a support because she has turrets, walls, and a sustained healing that make her an excellent at locking down zones and controlling objectives with her healing field as well. Always to support your team with different sort of utility, being able to wall people off, so rather cool character. Then you also have Viscous, who I like to throw in the support or utility role, and basically he has some of the strongest defensive tools in the entire game. He can protect allies with his cube, he can reposition with enemies with his puddle punch, and he can disrupt fights with his goo ball. And he's incredibly reliable and impactful in a lot of different team scenarios and team-oriented, going for objectives, and just team fights in general. He's very good at this sustained fighting. Following that, you come to Rem. Now, Rem has a pillow that on hitting enemies with it, it lowers the cooldowns of the rest of his abilities. His 2 is tag along, to where he can go to an ally, heal them, and he can jump between allies and minions, healing them up. His 3 is little minions that he can put on friendly minions. He can also steal centers with it. He has a sleep, so he's a bunch of utility and a bunch of macro when you're using all the active item abilities, so a ton of use cases for him, and it's honestly a pretty funny character. Now, the last category is your carries or your mouse one heroes. These are heroes scale hard and dominate the late game, typically referred to as mouse one heroes because they primarily do a lot of shooting. Your first one is Drifter. Now, he thrives on isolating targets and snowballing damage. He gains stacks from getting eliminations and assists that ramp up. The longer the match goes on, the more impact he has, the more stacks he builds up, so the more damage he does. Now, he's generally viewed as a carry because he scales extremely hard into the later minutes or time of the game. Next up, you have Infernus, who applies burn damage and excels in sustained fights. He has a wave dash ability that lets him move around the map rather quickly. He has a large AoE ultimate that stuns enemies, and overall can just rack up a ton of damage by just constantly shooting his primary gun. Following that, you have Lady Geist, and Lady Geist trades health for power and can completely flip fights with her ultimate by going 1 HP and swapping health pools with another target. By using all of her abilities, again, she trades her health to deal damage, so you have to be rather cautious of how you use it. Following that, you have Mirage, who is a split push specialist with strong dueling capabilities. Right now, he can rack up a ton of damage with both his Scarab Strike, which steals HP from enemies and grants it to yourself. You have a Tornado that is essentially a 1-second iframe that also acts as a knockup. you have a marker to where as you keep shooting enemies, the marker goes up, it scales with power, and on the last hit, it blows up, does quite a lot of damage. 7 in my eyes is kind of another one of these hybrids who's both a spirit nuker and carry, because 7 scales into a late game with a ton of AoE with both his surge, his ultimate, and just his entire kit. Following that, you have Wraith, who's has cards that deals damage, healing, and a little bit of both. You have a teleport ability. You have essentially unlimited ammo with your third ability. Then you have a single player knockup that brings people down towards you. You can redirect them wherever and silences the enemy. She's a character that excels in 1v1 scenarios and can do a lot in team-wide action as well, but definitely scales more towards late game once you're up there with the items needed. Moving on, you have Venator, a priest with a gun. Pretty ironic. His first ability is a grenade. Second ability is a shotgun that, if enemies are close to the wall, stuns them against the wall and allows you to do a quick melee. His third ability is a trap, and his ultimate is Area Domini that allows him to pull out a crossbow that does quite a lot of damage. He's kind of like an execute character like Vindicta. Racks up a lot of damage. He's an M1 carry because he really needs a lot of love if you want to do a lot of damage with his gun in the later stages of the game. Of course, if you want to build a melee, he does more damage in the early to mid game, whereas your gun scales a lot harder towards the end, so this depends on how you want to build them. Then last but certainly not least, we have Graves. Now, for Graves, I wasn't really sure where to put her because she kinda is a little bit of everything. Right now, people play her as an M1 carry in a way. She's also sort of a spirit nuker because she scales extremely well in spirit with the rest of her kit, and she also is kind of like a utility support because she has a ton of utility if you want to think of it that way. But right now, her first ability, she summons skulls. Second ability is a line that essentially stuns enemies if they walk over the line. Can stun enemies multiple times. They run back and forth between it. It can summon a ghoul at the end. Her third is as she does damage or as things die around her, she gains charges that allow her to throw more of her jars of skulls, or as I like to call them, pickles. Then her ultimate is a tombstone that enables her to split push, do a lot of damage, be really annoying. This is why I kind of put her as a little bit of everything because all of her abilities scale with spirit. People right now build her gun damage, so she's kind of a hybrid. Moving on, for our other M1 carries, you have Vyper, who's a carry/assassin hybrid, whose first ability throws stakes that deals poison damage. Her 2 is another assassination where at a certain threshold, she nukes people. Her 3rd is a slide that grants her more stamina. Her 4 is a bola that basically makes people essentially kind of like Medusa or Cassiopeia from League of Legends. So a rather cool character. Moving on, you have Warden, who's like a frontline carry/initiator, but plays more like a M1 bruiser rather than everything. He has a flask that reduces people's damage and adds bullet shred to himself. He has a cage, he has the ability to give himself a shield, and his ultimate is a big AoE lifesteal ability. Now moving on, we have some other characters that I kind of forgot to add to the video. I don't know how I forgot about these characters, but the first one is Mina, who's definitely a spirit nuker / I guess M1 carry in a certain aspect, but basically she excels at burst damage with her rake and just her gun damage and love bites in general, and she has a ton of mobility. So if you like doing a lot of damage, you like being hyper mobile, but you have a relatively low health pool, so you have to be playing a little bit safe, you have to understand how the game moves, this character definitely for you. Now moving on, we have Sinclair. Now Sinclair is a character that falls into a lot of different categories. He can be built, or they can be built as a spirit nuker, utility hybrid support character. It's a lot of words. Basically, they have a ton of utility, they have a spectral resistance, they have the ability to turn enemies into rabbits, allowing you to deal more damage. Their ultimates copies enemies' ultimates, so if you're against a really good comp, it's a good idea to steal some of those ultimates. So a very interesting, complex character. Now last but certainly not least, you have Paige, who is your pure support and enchanter character. One does AoE damage. Her tool is a shield that can shield teammates, multiple teammates in the later levels. Her 3 is a AoE stun or root. Her 4 is Camelot Charge that heals teammates and knocks up enemies and deals damage to them. So overall, just your pure support character. Again, I don't know why I forgot some of these characters were in the game. I guess too much stuff on my head. But anyways, that's pretty much all the characters right now. And that's pretty much every single hero in Deadlock. Rather quick, simple, and to the point for the most part. If you learned something new, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you're maining right now or who you're struggling with. I tried my best to hopefully explain what most of the character does, so you can get a decent understanding. As well, if you want to see some sort of other videos, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to check out the stream over on Twitch, and I appreciate all of you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.